Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. I began the show by summarizing for you the story that Kamala Harris is a plagiarist. There isn't actually a debate about this. She plagiarized. And that is a very serious thing. J.D. Vance yesterday brought it up on the campaign trail, cut number 19.
I saw today, actually, a story that Kamala Harris apparently copied some significant chunks of her book from Wikipedia. So if you want a president with their own ideas, vote for Donald Trump. If you want a president who copies her own ideas from Wikipedia, vote for Kamala Harris.
It's actually worse than that, J.D. Vance. If you want a president that you can trust to keep you safe and the country safe, vote for Donald Trump. If you want a president you can't even trust not to lie about a book, vote for Kamala Harris. Now, yesterday, Bill Clinton, the former president, Bill Clinton, was, quote, campaigning for Kamala Harris in Georgia, except he wasn't. It's beginning to look a lot like not Christmas, but that Biden and Clinton and Obama have decided short-term pain, long-term gain. We can't let her win. We'll get wiped out in 2 years. We're going to come out subtly against her. Because this is Bill Clinton yesterday at a fish fry. Let's do the long version. A minute 12, Bill Clinton talking about Laken Riley, the victim of murder at the hands of an illegal migrant, cut number 4.
And on the immigration thing, she's the only candidate who has actually endorsed a bill that would hold down immigration in any given year to a certain point, and then make sure we gave people a decent place to live. We didn't divide people from their children. And we did total vetting before people got in. Now, Trump killed the bill. The bill was being written by senior Republicans in the Senate. And he killed the bill. Why? You had a case in Georgia not very long ago, didn't you? They made an ad about a young woman who'd been killed by an immigrant. Yeah, well, if they'd all been properly vetted, that probably wouldn't have happened. But if they're all properly vetted, and that doesn't happen, and America is not having enough babies to keep our populations up, so we need immigrants that have been vetted to do work.
Do you know that Bill Clinton just admitted that had Kamala Harris not been the border czar, been charged, direct quote, with stemming the flow across the southern border, close quote, Joe Biden on appointing Kamala Harris to run the border, if migrants had been properly vetted, Laken Riley would not be dead. So Bill Clinton makes the point that Kamala Harris is responsible for migrant crime. Guy Benson, on Special Report panel last night, emphasized just how damaging this is to Kamala Harris. Cut number 5.
Of course, you can't properly vet millions and millions of people who come into the country, who flood across the border. And so Bill Clinton gets some credit for mentioning that case, which is largely ignored conspicuously by a lot of the people in his party. But it really causes a problem for the argument that Harris is trying to make. He mentioned the bill, which was an election year gambit, to give them a talking point. But,
which, by the way, 6 Democrats voted against.
Correct. But even if you set that completely aside, that was cooked up in 2024. The man accused of killing Laken Riley entered the country illegally in 2022. A few days later, literally, Kamala Harris went on national television and said the border is secure. She denied a crisis was even happening and said the border was secure. Of course, it was not. That man went on to commit additional crimes in other sanctuary jurisdictions before allegedly killing Laken Riley. So even with the caveat from Bill Clinton with the timing of the bill, it doesn't actually excuse what happened there. And that might be a good question for someone to ask her if they get an opportunity at some point.
Do you want to write
Only
this stuff
Scott
down?
Benson can do that to Brett Baer. I really appreciate Guy's humor. We'll talk with Brett a little bit later today. Bottom line, you can't trust Kamala Harris. Bill Clinton knows it. I don't know if Bill Clinton intentionally put the shiv in, but Joe Biden's been shivving her. I just think they're cutting their losses. Now, Kamala Harris made an Indigenous Peoples Day statement yesterday. Cut number 6.
Since 1934, every October, the United States has recognized the voyage of the European explorers who first landed on the shores of the Americas. But that is not the whole story. That has never been the whole story. Those explorers ushered in a wave of devastation for tribal nations, perpetrating violence, stealing land, and spreading disease. We must not shy away from this shameful past, and we must shed light on it.
I just want to say, it did not devastate the continent. The tribes were not fairly dealt with, but it unleashed an era of prosperity and growth and an ongoing incremental increase in liberty and literacy around the world. We should be very proud of the American legacy and not ashamed of it. We should note that the tribes were not dealt with fairly, and they are only now beginning to recompense themselves via their recognition of sovereignty. Neil Gorsuch, their big advocate on the Supreme Court. But honestly, I thought for a second, is this Maya Rudolph or is this Kamala Harris? I had to see the picture because really, you're going to attack America for devastating America because of the English settlements on the colonies moving west. She really is an unserious person. She sat down with podcaster Roland Martin yesterday and said this, cut number 7.
But to your point, in Georgia, they passed a law preventing people from giving food and water to folks who are standing in line to vote, which is the height of hypocrisy. Because, you know, what happened to love thy neighbor, right?
This has been debunked so thoroughly that she no longer cares whether she I think her numbers must be terrible. I think they're looking at a landslide. If she was ahead, she would not be agreeing to sit down with Brett. If she was ahead, she would not be doing everything she can. To quote the New York Times this morning, Harris steps up a major push for black voters. She is losing black voters? I mean, you should be stunned by that. But she was in a safe place with Roland, and she did what she always did when she's in a safe place. She let down her guard and went for the sky. Cut number 8.
You know, there's this whole, I talked with somebody once who said, you know, if you just look at where the stars are in the sky, don't look at them as just random things. If you just look at them as points, look at the constellation, what does it show you? So you just outlined it, Roland. What does it show you?
I love it when she goes philosophical. All right, she went to Erie, Pennsylvania yesterday. She had a big rally, big turnout. She's not going to win Erie County. I know Erie County pretty well. That's where I went to summer camp. It's about, 30 minutes from my home. Warren is Erie, Erie is Warren. Cut number 9. This one is a laugh for Kamala Harris in Erie yesterday.
That he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies.
How about that? Kamala Harris warning that Donald Trump will weaponize the DOJ. Remember, Donald Trump has been president. He did not go after any of his political opponents. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have unleashed the Department of Justice and have cooperated with New York State to do nothing but go after Donald Trump. They ought to have told David Ferriero, the archivist of the United States, when he sent the complaint over to Justice, work it out, will you? We're not going to go raid Mar-a-Lago in the look for papers. You know that every president takes papers that they should not take, and it takes years to go through it. We're not doing that. Retire, go away. David Ferriero did retire. I hope Donald Trump replaces the archivist and they put in another archivist, and he ought to start over when he wins. One other thing I've got to say, Kamala Harris in Erie, Pennsylvania yesterday, cut number 11.
You guys watched the debate. Right. He has, quote, concepts of a plan. Concepts.
She's losing it. She's losing it. Now, let me tell you, where did that all come together? She's a plagiarist. She goes philosophical and makes no sense. Bill Clinton says to you, Lake and Riley got into the country, and she attacks the American ideal, the American project, by saying we devastated the land. You cannot trust Kamala Harris to keep you safe, your family safe, or the country safe. Indeed, you certainly can't count on her to keep our allies safe. Financial Times today has a big story on Israel races to supply its anti-missile shield. They need more weapons we are not getting them to there fast enough because they're under constant attack by Hezbollah. 11 soldiers have been killed in Lebanon. The ground offensive is reviewed at great length in the Wall Street Journal this morning. Meanwhile, North Korea yesterday blew up all the roads heading to the south. A weird, weird day over there. Who handled Kim Jong-un the best? Donald Trump. He just calmed him down. A little bit nice to him. As he said on my program 10 days ago, when someone has nuclear weapons, you have to deal with them differently than when they don't. Kamala Harris will not help Israel, and she will not supply. She has not been asked any serious national security questions. She has not been asked if she will provide American support to an Israeli strike on Iran. She has not been asked if Israel has a right to respond. Donald Trump said, absolutely. They get a free shot. They got attacked twice. They get a chance to retaliate. She has not been asked about what percentage of GDP is the minimum percentage for this country. She has not been asked about our Navy. She's not been asked about anything having to do with national security. She doesn't know anything about national security. The most important question is, where are we going to get the power? Right? Today, there's a good story. Google orders small modular nuclear reactors for its data center. This comes only a week after Microsoft announced that it had bought 3 Mile Island in an effort to restart it. We need a lot more energy in the base load of electric energy in the United States, not just for your heating and air conditioning, not just to power your buildings, but to build AI and power supercomputing so we can keep up with the Chinese. Will Kamala Harris help build nuclear plants? No. California is the least friendly to electricity generation state in the union. And she was the attorney general who did nothing to solve that. Will she support Israel? No. They have a right to defend themselves. She has never said that they have the right to preempt attacks against themselves or to do what is necessary to prevent the annihilation of the Jewish state. She cannot be trusted to protect your family, as Bill Clinton pointed out. 10 million people unvetted into the United States. And that's before the phony bill was brought up that wasn't a bill, that had Jim Lankford and one other senator in favor of it. And Jim did the best job he could, but the Senate Republican Conference said it's not even close, and they rejected it. That myth is a myth. You just cannot trust Kamala Harris to keep you safe, the country safe, or our allies safe. I'm Hugh Hewitt.